Welcome to the Word Channel. Today we're examining one of the most overlooked yet powerful moments in the book of Genesis, the story of Hagar and Ishmael. This passage isn't just about two people caught in a family dispute. It's about what happens when human impatience tries to interfere with divine timing. 1. The setting. Faith under pressure. Genesis 16 opens several years after God's covenant with Abram. The promise of a son still hasn't been fulfilled. Sarai, now approaching 90, begins to question whether she misheard God. This is where most believers find themselves at some point in the space between promise and fulfillment. And that space tests what kind of faith we truly have. Sarai's frustration is understandable. She does what many of us do when we get tired of waiting. She begins to reason. She looks for a logical way to help God keep his word. She tells Abram, "Go into my maidservant, that I may obtain children by her." In the ancient world, this was culturally acceptable, but spiritually disastrous, because the moment faith depends on human strategy, it stops being faith. 2. The consequence of control. Hagar conceives. Immediately, tension enters the home. Where there is insecurity, pride grows. Hagar begins to despise Sarai. Sarai retaliates. Abram stays silent. This silence is significant. When leadership refuses to correct error, conflict multiplies. And what was meant to fix the problem only deepens the fracture. What's fascinating here is that the promise God made to Abram never needed assistance. The delay wasn't denial, it was development. God was shaping faith, not withholding blessing. But Abram and Sarai traded the patience of promise for the pain of interference. 3. Hagar's flight. In God's mercy, Hagar flees into the wilderness, pregnant, rejected, and alone. To everyone else, she's disposable. But to God, she's seen. Here, in the desert, occurs something profound. This is the first recorded appearance of an angel in Scripture. And it's not to Abram, not to a king, not to a prophet, but to a runaway Egyptian servant. The angel calls her by name, Hagar. In Hebrew culture, to be named is to be acknowledged. God validates the invisible. He tells her to return, not as punishment, but as protection, because her story isn't finished. Then comes the promise. You will bear a son, and you shall call his name Ishmael, for the Lord has heard your affliction. Even in the aftermath of disobedience, God plants a future. That's mercy, not the removal of consequence, but the presence of grace within it. 4. El Roi, the God who sees. In response, Hagar gives God a name. El Roi, the God who sees me. This is the first time in the entire Bible that a human names God. And it's not from a patriarch on a mountain. It's from a woman in the desert. That tells us something about God's character. He is not only the God of covenant, he is the God of compassion. He doesn't just see nations, he sees individuals. He doesn't just visit temples, he meets people by springs of water in their wilderness moments. 5. Lessons for the modern believer. Let's draw 3 key lessons. Lesson 1. God's delays are never his denials. Waiting is not wasted time, it's preparation. Every delay teaches dependence. Lesson 2. When you try to rush what God is doing, you create problems you'll have to pray out of. Sarai's plan produced pain that outlived her. Sometimes the consequences of impatience echo longer than we expect. Lesson 3. Mercy is God's final word. Even when we fail, God meets us. He didn't erase Hagar's story, he redeemed it. Her wilderness became the classroom of grace. 6. Conclusion. Hagar's encounter reveals something eternal about God. He sees, he hears, and he still fulfills his promise, not because we get it right, but because his character doesn't change. So when faith feels delayed, remember Hagar. When you're tempted to help God, remember Sarai. And when you feel unseen, remember El Roi, the God who sees you. Faith may fail, but mercy endures forever.